I feel as if just walking through the grounds just now I could pick up where I left off. It all seems just so familiar. It's all just the same, apart from the fact that it's so run down. I just feel as if, yeah, I could come back tomorrow and things would be just the same. Lovely. Pleasure to be here actually. Isn't it, Eddie? It's all so familiar.
I've been coming back and forward photographing stuff, and every time I'm over it's a million memories and another memory.
It's just all swimming back to me. Everything. There definitely was a big thing lost when they locked the doors, moved us off. The pastor knew. My last shift in here, patients were moving that day to the new building, which was over at Belvedere. So our shift was, I was night shift at the time, and it was a case of once you were finished in the morning, you were leaving, and I drove off, knowing full well most of the rest of the hospital was empty, was desolate, and we had just like the care of the elderly wards at the back, and I knew driving off this was the last time I would ever see this place as a functioning unit. I remember looking at out my mirror, driving down the driveway. It was a lovely sunny morning, thinking that's it, this is it, the end of an era. When I drove away thinking, oh well, this is it, what's in store for us now? And it's true, what was in store for everyone. You're never going to get it again. They wanted to close these big institutions down.
Gartloch Hospital closed its doors in 1996, 100 years after the first patients were admitted in November 1896. 8 months later, on June the 3rd, 1897, Gartloch Asylum was officially opened in an attempt to address some of the social problems brought about by industrial expansion in the late 19th century. With prosperity came a population explosion, and alongside wealth came poverty. The city's poor were forced to live in cramped and outdated housing. A result of their living conditions was an increase in mental illness. In 1887, the Lunacies District Scotland Act was passed, and Glasgow set up the City of Glasgow Lunacy Board with the aim of building an asylum for the city's poor that would not be attached to a poorhouse like Barnhill. Situated within 12 miles of the city centre and with enough land for a farm, the Gartloch estate met the board's recommendations and was purchased for the sum of almost £8,600 in 1889. Building work got underway in September 1890 and took 6 years to complete. The son of the acclaimed architect Alexander Greek Thomson and his local firm Thomson and Sandilands was appointed as the architects for the new hospital buildings. The plans resembled the traditional blueprint for such institutions at that time. Wards, administration blocks, dining and recreation rooms, the workshops, laundry and kitchens were separate buildings linked by corridors. Furnishings were chosen with the intention of providing a serene and homely environment. Overlooking Bishop Walk on the east side of the city, the hospital was largely self-contained, surrounded by gardens, woodlands and farmland. In the Old Scots, the word Gart means garden, and this garden by the loch soon gave rise to a new community working and living in the area. During the summer, patients, staff and their families took part in sports days and picnics in the grounds. In the winter, the Grand Recreation Hall was host to screenings of the latest films, glass lantern slideshows and sales of work. Patients were encouraged to undertake therapeutic work. Many worked in the greenhouses and gardens or in the farm colony. Some male patients assisted the plumbers, electricians and joiners, whilst the women helped out with domestic chores like cleaning the wards and doing the laundry. After World War I, changing attitudes and advances in the treatment of mental illness led to the Mental Treatment Act of 1930, and Gartloch Asylum became Gartloch Mental Hospital. It became part of the National Health Service in 1948 and later placed within the Greater Glasgow Health Board, which was set up in 1974. In the mid-1990s, with the move away from institutional care towards the idea of care in the community, Gartloch Hospital closed down, bringing to an end what had become to many long-term patients a way of life. It was replaced by new smaller hospitals closer to the city centre, such as Parkhead, and daycare outpatient facilities within local health centres. The Gartloch estate today has been redeveloped as luxury apartments, and many of the original buildings and features have been retained and adapted. In 2005, from under the first foundation stone laid at the original nurses' home just over 100 years ago, a time capsule was unearthed.
Can I say, everyone looking at this just now, you've in front of you a thing called time capsule. We're busy putting them into buildings in Greater Easter House, and this is the first time we've been able to excavate an actual time capsule. So if you just all look and carefully find out what's inside this time capsule. This was what's been deposited, a minute of the City of Glasgow District Council for the past 6 months. Current silver and copper coins of the realm. Copy of the first report of Gartloch Asylum. Yep. Copy of Lunacy Board yearbook. And a list of the accepted contractors, architects and measurers. And a statement about the nurses' home. The foundation stone will be laid by a William McClure. Mr. McClure will point out that the nursing, the insane, offers a great field for those desirous of entering the nursing profession, and that it calls on the part of the nurse for qualities as high as those possessed by any other branch of nursing. Here, hospital and asylum are separated, and that a thorough training is given in the mental and sick nursing, which enables the nurses to obtain a diploma. Now, that is language of 100 years ago, but a wee blast from the past helps us to celebrate the enormous work that were done by nurses who specialised in this branch, in the very first branches of psychiatric nursing. And I think that is absolutely something worthwhile. Don't you think so? So let's salute.
I think absolutely terrific. Very nice of you to come along and to open it and to share it with the NHS, share it with the Glasgow City Council and all the people of Glasgow. It is just tremendous.
How do you feel with the hospital? What was the attributes? What bits it worked? Do you
I think everything worked.
I think it all worked. It was very much a self-contained village to me. There was everything here.
Working here was so open and I don't know, you felt better here.
I think the thing about this place too, there was roughly 1,000 patients when I was here, and I don't know how many staff there was hundreds of staff as well, and you knew everyone. Everyone.
There was a community feel to the place, wasn't it? There was, like the Parkhead hospitals, it felt as an impersonal feel about them. And it's just, I don't know what they lack. I don't know if the building that creates that atmosphere or whatever. The buildings let us create a better atmosphere.
You're away from the hubbub of life. I mean, the patients could wander about here and they could be on their own literally. And they would maybe meet other patients or you'd maybe meet other staff, but you could walk for hours in the solace of the beautiful grounds. In the summertime, this place is breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking, isn't it?
I mean, these places were called asylums, and asylum just means a place of haven. It's a place of
safety.
Rest and safety. And you were miles away from any traffic.
The grounds were absolutely beautiful, but they were famous for their flowers. The flowers and the plants were absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
There used to be massive gardens down there, and there was the patients that maintained it, where they sold all the soft fruit, flowers. The garden supplied all the wards, flowers, plants.
The daffodils, tulips, the bulbs and everything. I used to love it when they brought the trolley around and all the new plants, the pots were all going up and down, going along the street, and you're like, oh yeah, we've got new plants in the ward. Every window ledge had a beautiful plant on it, a new plant on it.
Really lovely place.
What do you think the maximum number of patients here?
There was 1,200. The colony was the biggest. At that time, I slept 75 patients. But it was a great place to work.
I loved the farm colony.
Farm colony. Profitable farm. You know, there was cattle, farm cottages, and they used to supply Stop Hill, Glasgow Royal, Berlini Prison, Belvedere, the milk, and the potatoes, everything. Get their breakfast and away in the fields, picking the chotties and so
life,
forth.
that's right.
The patients
They loved
loved
it, and it was their life for many, many years. You know.
Once they shut the farm colony, the farm down, myself personally, I think that was a death knell. The psychiatric hospitals as such, because shortly after that they started to run them down.
I think what they thought it was maybe a form of exploitation, and then the gardens shut down, and most of the ward then became not locked, and people got more freedom. So the patients did roam about more. They certainly had more time in their hands.
Didn't always work because people run away and went to the pubs and come back drunk and caused trouble. But in general terms, it was a good idea. And also got rid of the white coats. They always said the difference between the patients and the staff was we were inside the coats and they were outside. But being a self-contained village, it was self-contained. We had everything here.
It was a particularly pretty spot, this. This really was quite a beauty spot at any time of year.
Oh, fantastic history with it.
Lots of nice memories, but a lot of heartache as well up here. It was not a happy place all the time. There was a lot of tragedies and people dying and killing themselves and things like that. But, the abiding memories are good ones.
The last time I went into Gartloch was 26 years ago, when Dr. Antiby took me from Carswell House in his car and put me into Gartloch Hospital. I didn't think it was a serene place, no a bit, no one bit, no. How can it be serene? They didn't put you in a mild ward. They just put you in with everybody else. That was a lot worse than yourself. A lot of people knew Gartloch from the view from Auchinleigh Road right over. A lot of different places you could see this big hospital, because it's a big hospital. At one time the word Gartloch frightened everybody. Gartloch got a bad name. Gartloch was a stigma. If you were known to be in Gartloch, oh my God, you were a big bad wolf. See, Gartloch was known then, 30 years ago, as a mental hospital. Nowadays, you don't hear them saying, I'm going to a mental hospital. But when you were going into Gartloch, you were classed as a mental patient. You were just, that's what they classed you as. But I say, you're into Parkhead. That's a hotel compared to Gartloch. That is a hotel compared to Gartloch Hospital. Because 30 years ago, it just wasn't a hospital, it was just like a concentration camp. That's what oftentimes it came into my mind. And that's been honest. I often thought, maybe my mental state, I don't know, I was in this concentration camp. That's what I felt in this hospital.
I still remember things that happened to me. I hated it, very bad memories. I didn't like it, but I had to get better because I was right down. Well, my husband, he woke me up. It was him. Well, I was took to the Royal Infirmary, and it was the Royal Infirmary, and one doctor advised me to go because I might do something really drastic. But I know I was really bad with my nerves. I'd never been in a place like that, and because they'd put me in a locked ward, I was a bit scared, but it really got on top of me, and I just see me going downhill, slower and slower. But Gartloch, they're bad memories of it, but then I wouldn't go back now if you paid me to go back. Don't get me wrong, I didn't like it. I had a family, I wanted them.
I was in a psychiatric hospital in Perth for a few weeks. I was shipped into Gartloch about 3 weeks later. My first memories of Gartloch, it wasn't a very pleasant experience to be in a psychiatric hospital. I mean, I was extremely unwell, extremely delusional. Auditory hallucinations were rife. So basically I was put into hospital for my own safety and the safety of others. Spent a lot of time. I was extremely psychotic when I was first admitted. You know, it was probably the most serious bout of psychosis I had ever since, basically. I was very, very disorientated. I didn't really know where I was. I was only like 18. I'm a bit older now, and I appreciate the surroundings in comparison with other hospitals I've been in, because beautiful grounds and that, I would prefer the setup at Gartloch. I think I would get a lot of peace in a place like that to recover. But at the time, I didn't like where I was. I was always wanting to go home.
Well, when I first went into Gartloch for several things, I was mentally ill. I remember going in there. There was a main entrance door, and there was the geriatrics at the bottom, and there was us at the top. And this building was a beautiful big building. You stayed in all day, but you did get out if you wanted to go for a walk in the grounds. But when you first got admitted, you had to have a staff with you in case you ran away, because they didn't know you. So it took a while. You went out with staff, maybe they'd say to you, we'll take you out for 10 minutes to the garden. They would take you out for 10 minutes to the garden and take you back up to your ward again. Then, as the weeks went on, they trusted you to go out yourself. So you walked around the gardens, walked away about, and the gardens were really lovely. I must admit, the gardens were lovely. And as I said to you, if you felt like it and it was the summer, they let you out to sit in the gardens on a seat with your husband or your baby or whatever you had. But you had a set time to come back. And if you weren't back for that time, they had somebody right out for you.
Because I was right ill, I was only allowed out 5 minutes, and they wouldn't let me take my kids because mine was young. They were young, they were too young to visit me. We'd been in the closed ward, they wouldn't. And they said it would upset the kids. I was in quite a while, and I remember the buildings and the ground. It was a lovely ground. Well, I wouldn't get out because I was in a locked ward. If I wanted out, I'd have to ask permission. Sometimes I get support from them. There was always one wee nurse, I can't mind her name. She was very good. If I wanted to go for a wee walk, she would always be with me, knowing that I might run away, but I don't think I would have. I wanted to get help to get myself cured. All I kept thinking about was my kids. I wanted to help, to be with them.
You know, having lived in the same area as Gartloch, you know, I was only, I remember I ran away. I ran away. You know, I only lived about 1.5 miles away. You know, and I ran to my home, and the nurses were waiting on me. And I was like in my pyjamas, and I was up in this, standing on a hill, screaming, you know, I'm sane, I'm sane. But obviously I wasn't. You know what I mean? I was very unwell. But Gartloch was a very busy place. It's not very conducive to be in amongst a lot of people when you suffer psychosis, because it's what you call stimulation. The more people run about you, the more agitated, the more fearful, the more unsettled you are. And that's what I experienced. I didn't really like on the ward. Every time you wanted to move about, the nurses were always saying to you, sit down. You were out your bed at 7 in the morning, taken downstairs for breakfast, and that was you the whole day till 10 o'clock. Given the large amount of drugs that I was on, there was a lot of times when I was pretty tired, and there was no place you could go to rest. They locked the ward where the beds were up the stair. They locked them, and you couldn't get in for the rest of the day. Being in the agitated state I was in, I used to walk up and down quite a lot, you know, and it wasn't very. The nurses didn't like that sort of thing, you know. They would grab a hoodie and sit down, sort of thing, you know, just sit at peace. You know, they'd like to get a bit of order and a bit, you know. If they got a bit of order, they would sit down and they would play cards.
The ward that I was in was a ladies' ward on one side and the gents' ward at the other side. And it was quite good, but in the hospital I just didn't like the way that you sat in this room, a big square, we sitting right round it and round it, nothing in the middle, just talking to each other, nothing, no nurses, no in a wee duty room. I didn't like that. I don't think they had the same time for you as the nurses have now, because they were so busy with other patients. They didn't have any time to talk to you.
That was a lovely building as well, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, they were all what they call Florence Nightingale wards, because there was big long wards, so you could see everything. Then they started to build individual cubicles. But after that, the accident rate went up because you couldn't see patients. Whereas the Florence Nightingales, you could see, you had a clear view of everything.
Of course, the bigger wards, there was no privacy for people.
Yeah, that was the reason they cubicalised them.
But in the geriatric wards, it was a problem because if you were in one cubicle and someone was falling out of bed, the next cubicle, you couldn't get to them, as simple as that.
It was okay if you had 4 or 5 staff on, but quite
Never
often you
happened.
were maybe there with 2 and 3,
Never happened.
and there was 30 patients.
It's
When they had electric.
That was what?
many a shock I got in there.
Oh, didn't like that.
Well,
I knew it was good for the patients, but I just didn't
Necessary.
like it.
Gartloch, I made quite a few friends that were in the same predicament as myself. Well, I liked my privacy and I liked being with folk, but once I was got my into with the other patients and that, I liked it better. I liked my company, so I wouldn't feel out of place or anything, but I liked being with company and talking. It seemed to help me more, bring me out my mental problem. I hated it, but there were good times and all. But the shock treatment helped me because I was right down. After the shock treatment, I just wanted home. Just wanted back to main environment. I'm not saying it was bad all the time, but I had to get better.
I was put back in Gartloch again and again and again because I just couldn't get over what was wrong with me. I got 12 shock treatments. As I said to you, that isn't a nice thing up in Gartloch. That was not a nice thing, and you felt terrible. You felt really terrible. I got that in Stop Hill. I got 12 to 14 shock treatments in Stop Hill. That was nothing to me, because you got it decent. You had a decent environment and all that. Lovely ward, Stop Hill. Lovely ward. They didn't line you up like a herd of sheep waiting to get slaughtered. This is the things you do feel in these places, but because you're ill. Some of the patients, I mean, you really need to be in Gartloch. Not like Parkhead, just with a couple of wards in it. There's patients in, it's just like a house to them. There's people there for about 15 years. There maybe be a lot somewhere, then you'd maybe go a wee bit distance. There was maybe a ward and you think it was dead empty. And all of a sudden you'd look and you see somebody at the window. Well, that was a long-term ward. And the people would just be staring at the windows. It was a shame. It was a nothingly pure shame. I used to feel sorry for the people, being like that. They would just come to the window, say, oh my God, you think you're bad? And you look at that. How are they poor people feeling? And they weren't young, they were old. Where had all these people gone to?
I was quite concerned about people who were long-term unwell. People who may or may not make a full recovery, you know, being relocated. You know, what about some of the guys that, you know, that just, if they were that used to that place, it was like their home. You know, they kind of are institutionalised, know what I mean? And at the same time, you're institutionalised and you've not got your proper faculties about you, sort of thing. So I'm concerned about the fact that some of these guys, you know, and when I was in Gartloch, I'd seen a lot of guys, maybe guys in their 50s and 60s, who, you know, probably might never get better. You know, where are they going to go, sort of thing, you know?
In the 80s, they knew that they had to close this institution down and start moving people about. And it meant that every person above a certain age had to be sent to the rehabilitation unit. And they were dragged upstairs, kicking and screaming. And when they got up there, we tried to give them skills that probably they had never used in their lives before. Tried to get them to cook and to budget, to attend to their personal hygiene. For years all this had been taken away from them. We'd done it all for them and they didn't like it, and they were having to budget and having to break down money to say how much would you spend on your rent, how much would you spend on your electricity bill, and it's all alien for them. And as I say, there was a lot of them that were very successful and an awful lot of them just bounced back. They put into supported accommodation, it didn't work. And sadly, you know, we knew that was going to be the future, that there was going to be these smaller hospitals, built up areas, and Gartloch wasn't going to exist anymore. Their home for years, and it really was their home for years. But we did know it had to happen. Parkhead Hospital was being built, and it was a new building, and it was meant to bring new life and get us away from these institutions. And none of us particularly wanted to see the closure of Gartloch, whether it was good or bad. But in an awful lot of ways, it was the death of so many things. You're never going to get it again. The end of an era.